All right, gentlemen, it's masterclass time again. And the title of this coming Wednesday's masterclass to be held on March 26, 2025 at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time speaks for itself. Better in Bed, how to be the best she's ever had. Now, guys, listen, I have no idea how we went 36 masterclasses deep into this without ever having done an event on just how to be the kind of man a woman always craves in the bedroom. But that's what you can expect from this coming Wednesday's masterclass. Yes, we're going to talk about techniques. We're going to talk about how to rock her in the bedroom like she's never experienced before in her entire female life. But we're also going to cover all important areas like the mindset of a man who is amazing in bed, how to go out with a woman and prime her with mental foreplay all day long so that by the time you get back to your place or hers, man, it is just no holds barred sexual mayhem. And best of all, I'm not going to teach you how to be a sleazy pickup artist who's reeling in the biscuit or something. I'm going to show you how to seduce women the way they want to be seduced and give it to them the way they fantasize about. All that's happening this coming Wednesday, the 26th of March, 2025 at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's GMT -4 for those of you guys overseas. Now listen, this isn't going to be like dry clinical sex advice like you get from the Kinsey Institute or something, nor is it going to be some kind of prurient pseudo porn like something hosted by a porn star or something. This is real talk for real men about how to be the best she's ever had. And that's in bed or anywhere else your creative mind can think of. And oh, by the way, I'll give you a few more ideas you probably never thought of for that as well. Better in Bed. Be the best she's ever had. This coming Wednesday's Masterclass for Men from XMY Communications. Get your ticket right now before they're all sold out at mountaintoppodcast.com. And now, my wife Emily and I are going to present to you a perhaps ironic topic, considering what this week's masterclass is about. But here we go. What if we have sex too soon? It's a good one and a fun one. Enjoy.
Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X&Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scott McKay.
All right, everybody, how's it going? My name is Scott McKay.
And I'm Emily McKay.
And you're tuned in to yet another episode of The Big Show. And today, Emily, we're going to talk about a topic that's been on the back burner for quite a while, but it's time to hit it with a big old heavy hammer.
Oh boy, what is it?
What if we have sex too soon?
That's an interesting topic.
Well, first of all, is it a loaded question? Is it a relevant question? Is it a meaningful question?
Well, especially in today's society, it's changed so much over the decades that I think society views things very differently nowadays. So I think we should visit that topic.
Yeah, because it's the me first society, right? It's also the immediate gratification society. And we've fallen into that trap as a society, as a culture of, going after transactional relationships. So for a lot of people, we're really left with the only reason to be together is to start screwing anyway.
Right, satisfying those urges rather than making connections. Are those connections important? Are we missing something?
Well, I think that begs the question. Most people, at least cognitively, would say, well, of course I want to be able to connect with someone. That's what it's all about. I'm thinking of Wilt Chamberlain's infamous autobiography where he talked about having sex with 20,000 women. And people were like, my goodness, you're like a man whore. How could you just bang a bunch of chicks? It seems so mindless. It seems so gratuitous. And Wilt responded to that criticism with, well, I had a meaningful connection with each one of those 20,000 women. So can you have a meaningful connection really quickly with people? Let's say you're a really connectable person like I like to talk about so often. Is it possible to build a connection in mere minutes maybe with someone?
Well, I think we first have to define connection and what it truly is. Because if we all have a different idea of connection, then we're not truly on the same page. So let's talk about connection and what is connectable. So connection is getting to know somebody, knowing them inside and out and deeply. Can we really truly say we know somebody within seconds of meeting them or just having a quick fling and then calling it quits? Is that truly a connection when we haven't gotten the opportunity to know all the good and the bad and the ugly of that individual?
Well, do I need to know the good, bad, and especially the ugly about an individual before we have sex?
You don't have to, but to make that connection, you do.
Well, I would offer that maybe the kind of connection you're talking about doesn't necessarily need weeks and months or even years to make happen. Otherwise, we'd be waiting a long time. You know, you and I got married after 9 months, for gosh sakes. You know what I mean? So when I think of connection, I think of two people who get each other. They know what's going on in each other's head. They like each other. They've built that rapport, right? On dates, I've been known to say, even to you, my honey, that we've been talking for 10 minutes and it feels like we've known each other for 10 years.
Well, we were connecting, but we haven't truly connected until time went by.
How much time went by before it was time to have sex, Emily?
Well, you and I spent a lot of time together. We spent days after days after days, where some couples may see each other.
Not weeks after weeks after months after months after years.
Oh, don't tell. But some people, they only see each other once a month or once a week. That's entirely different.
Well, I suppose there could be a case made for the importance of passage of time relative to the question at hand. Are we having sex too soon versus, spending a lot of time with each other joined at the hip for, an amount of time there before it happens.
Well, I think people who are connecting and who are really getting along great, even if they're not connecting, but have a chemistry, their spark, the excitement, you can have that without having a connection. And we call that infatuation. And
well, yeah, but those people can't keep their hands off each other.
No, of course not. There's a spark and there is that attraction to each other, but that is not the same as connecting.
All right. So, the title of the podcast is What If We Have Sex Too Soon? But, the inherent question underneath all of that, underpinning it foundationally, is should we have sex soon?
Well, it depends on what your goals are. If this is going to be a temporary just for fun, almost like friends with benefits.
Or just a fling.
Or something is, going to last a few months and you have no permanent future together.
What are your intentions for my daughter? Kind of stuff, right?
But you need to ask that of yourself and of the person who you're with and be honest with each other. That way there's no hurt feelings in the end because at least there was some honesty there. And in the way that's respectful.
You have to be on the same page.
Absolutely. If you're wanting something more permanent, and you don't discuss this with the person that you're with, you may not have the same goals in mind, and you're in for a lot of heartbreak.
Well, so far we've established that having sex too soon may be a result of not connecting, but if you're just horny for each other and that's what both of you are about, then maybe there's not such thing as too soon.
Right. It really depends on what you're looking for. Now, how does that affect a long-term relationship? There's people who met on day one and were intimate and have been married for 20, 30, 40 years. And there's others where that didn't happen.
Yeah, there are people who saved themselves for marriage after courting and dating all through high school and college. Then one day they get married and guess what? They don't have a sex life.
That can happen also.
They weren't sexually compatible even, which is horrifying.
That could be. Well, that would have to result in having some communication before you get married.
Well, yeah, but not only communication, but do these parts fit together? Do we have the same chemistry in bed? Is that something that's reparable?
I don't know.
Well, I guess the question at hand there is then, is it a real thing in the real world that people have legitimate sexual incompatibility, or are they just hallucinating?
Well, here's the real bottom line to that. You got to talk and find out what each one of you are looking for in sex. There's different kinds of sex. You may have one idea and the other person has some extra kinky stuff going on that needs to be fulfilled for them. And if you're not on the same page, someone's going to be incredibly frustrated and the other one's going to feel disappointed because they can't fulfill on those things. There could be some religion or some cultural differences on what they feel is appropriate for different types of sex. That would have a huge incompatibility if those things aren't cleared up.
And to clarify, when we're talking about what's acceptable in terms of sex, we could be talking either before or after marriage. The Mormons allegedly do that soaking thing, right?
And that's what I've heard. I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah, it's widely made fun of. Apologies to all you Mormons out there if you're listening. But, just sticking it in and it's okay if you don't move or thrust, that sounds a little creepy to me.
Well, probably more horny than anything.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be able to do that, why not just have a hand job or a blowy or something like that?
Well, some people view oral sex as not sex.
Some people view anal sex as not sex.
Just remember the word sex is in oral sex.
Fair enough, just like anal sex, right? But you're talking to a guy who spent 4 years at a Christian conservative university. There were plenty of people who were technical virgins. They did everything but, literally. And that's pretty crazy because most women don't really like anal sex. But I guess, you can do that. You can do oral. You can manually stimulate each other. You can mutually masturbate, but just, don't put the round peg in the round hole that could make babies. A lot of people think like that.
Well, I guess that's one way of dealing with birth control.
Well, it is. And that's a very valid point, right? Because the last thing you want to do when you don't really mean to is make a baby.
That reminds me, I dated one guy. He
accidentally made a baby?
Yes, not with me.
Oh, okay.
So we just started dating, and he told me, hey, look, I got to tell you something. I have a baby with another lady, and we got together one time. We only knew each other 2 weeks, and bam, we have a baby together.
And
he's helping her raise the baby. But, at this point, this is a baby who's born into a separate household.
I would say maybe even if they felt like they weren't having sex too soon, they certainly had at least irresponsible, unprotected, or extremely unlucky sex too soon.
All the above.
Yeah, all the above. Well, I don't know if you're irresponsible, whether you can call it luck.
They have a happy baby girl.
Well, more power to them, I guess. But back to our main question. I mean, so far we've discussed, all right, are we having a fling versus are we relationship-minded? And we've also discussed, are we the kind of people who are at least trying to avoid vaginal sex before marriage? And obviously, if we don't avoid vaginal sex before marriage and for faith-based reasons we blow it, well, more than blow it, obviously, then there's a lot of guilt and shame about that. And maybe or maybe not, those people will have lots of guilt and shame going into their actual marriage. I mean, it's really potentially destructive. It's a lot to live up to. And when you mess up, when you screw up, I guess is the way I should say it, I don't know if it's recoverable in that context.
Right. Well, something you reminded me of. Sometimes having sex too soon cheapens the experience. And I think that's why a lot of couples don't stay together after that's happened, because it's like, well, that was just too easy.
I could get the milk without buying the cow.
Right. And if, she upsets me or he upsets me and we're not really connecting anymore, I can just quickly leave because, well, there was no real appreciation for that connection, sexual and otherwise.
Yeah, I can see that. I do want to bring up one more point before we go on, just to kind of close out what we were talking about a minute or so ago. I think there's such thing as forgiveness. And if you two are people of faith, you can ask forgiveness of your God and repent. But I think if you're building a relationship around repeated infractions against your alleged belief system and then continue to just do it anyway, I can only imagine that will negatively affect how good you feel about being in a marriage together, even perhaps how much you trust each other. Am I off base there?
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Well, then I'm not off base. How can you
trust somebody if they can't hold to their belief system? So when they're off on their own on a business trip, are they going to hold to their faith and to the dedication to you because they're supposed to be dedicated to the religion? How can they be dedicated to you? I mean, not that they will cheat, but they has to kind of
Well, we've
linger.
already established they don't have any willpower.
That's true.
But then again, neither do you. You're in this together. It takes two to do that tango.
Well, I tell you, that emotional or that charged energy is intense.
It is, especially when, we're allowing for two people who actually really adore each other and it's a special connection. So maybe they wouldn't go off and bang their secretary or go on a business trip and say, hey, nobody's around, nobody's going to know. But it still raises the question of, hey, we were supposed to keep it in the holster here and we didn't.
Temptation.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And we tempted each other pretty successfully.
Can someone else do it?
Right. Exactly. Let's shift gears a little bit. During the pickup artist era, there was a lot of talk about seduction and how you could get inside a woman's mind and basically talk her into doing anything through a bunch of mind tricks and NLP and stuff like that. So you had a lot of guys, and you still do today. I mean, a lot of men, maybe even listening to this show or of this mindset, hey, they're just trying to get laid. Anything it takes to get laid. Now, from a woman's perspective, that could lead to a whole litany of situations where we've had sex too soon. Because, hey, you pushed me, or I felt pressured, or I felt tricked, or this is the kicker, this is the big one. You promised me something you weren't about to deliver on. You told me I was the only one. You told me that you loved me. You told me that we were exclusive when we weren't, and you were banging a bunch of other chicks on the side. All of that has to be thought of as destructive, right?
Well, yes, it's incredibly destructive. That's why we have a lot of women out there who are third and fourth wave feminists who are angry. They've been hurt over and over again by men who don't really appreciate the delicacy of another human being.
Well, here's what I would add to that on a pragmatic level. Gentlemen, listening to this, if you're going to have sex with a woman and she at least comes off as being relationship-minded, you better talk about where your relationship is and where it's going before you conveniently have sex with her. Because if you withhold that conversation, I would say you're not being a great guy.
Well, I would go one step further. She's going to assume you're now in a relationship.
Right.
Exclusive.
Yes, women will assume exclusivity and men will assume non-exclusivity, even if they're seeing each other 4 or 5 times a week, talking on the phone with each other every day. But she's gone into girlfriend mode.
Oh, yes, definitely. And
right.
If it's not a girlfriend, that has to be set straight. Otherwise, you're going to really hurt her.
Yes, it's going to be extremely painful. You better have tried to enjoy that sex, as awkward as it probably was when the two of you don't even know why you're together or where you're headed, but you're not going to have any more of it once she's that upset with you.
It's really sad. And today there's a lot of women who have that same mentality that the men do.
Oh, yeah, there's lots of women out there who are just cruising for sex. No doubt about it. But if you have the conversation, at least you know where you stand.
Yes. And we've actually talked to men who are like, why did she stop hanging out with me? I really enjoyed her company and I wanted to see her again. And for her, it was just a one-night stand. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's like the at least traditional or stereotypical gender roles were reversed.
Completely,
You see that a lot.
Oh, yes. It's like there's no longer a need to connect or have the need to be friends with the person you had sex with. It's just, this was a mechanical thing. We, mechanically let, the tab A go into tab B and we were done.
Sounds like engineer sex.
Yes.
Yeah, terrible. You know what? Here's an ironic truth surrounding the phenomenon you just described. Women won't see men as being even potentially emotionally tender about that. They'll go, well, all men just want to have sex. I want to have sex. Why even talk about it? And therefore, when the guy is left thinking, my goodness, I wanted a relationship, I kind of feel used, her response is going to be, really? You got to be kidding me. You're a dude. You have a penis swinging between your legs. What seems to be the problem, bro? You got exactly what you wanted. Move on. But that's not a very human way to look at it.
No, that's lacking character. That's lacking empathy and understanding the human emotions that men and women both actually share.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Now, there's one situation that we have to at least give lip service to. And that's when two people meet each other. They're obviously just horny for sheet-ripping sex. If she's basically attacking you, grinding you, saying, how long are you going to make me wait on a first date, it would be extremely dirty pull for her to come back the next morning and go, I thought you were my one and only. I thought you were my boyfriend. I thought this was our forever thing. Because that would just be a swindle.
That's an entrapment.
Exactly.
And then you should be happy you didn't fall for it.
Well, there are also the women who go, hey, let's have sex right here in the moment because, we're spontaneous and you don't talk about STDs.
Oh.
You don't talk about birth control. And it's because she kind of wanted to slide all that under the door. First of all, she's got a smoking case of herpes. I'll never see you again, but at least I got some.
Because I hadn't had any in forever.
Yeah, and the guy can do the same thing to a woman for sure. This is not gender specific, but the next facet of this conversation is pretty much unique to women. I really want a baby, even though I want to raise it by myself. I just need a sperm donor.
Oh,
You can't
boy.
be that guy.
No.
Let's hear another +1 for having the conversation before you have sex, because the get off is not worth the letdown after that one.
It's 18. Isn't there a song that says 18 years? There's a bunch of songs, hip hop and country songs that talk about baby mamas and, men regretting having, this 18-year chain behind them.
Yeah, exactly. Because you know what, guys? It is an 18-year chain.
Longer, actually.
Well, yeah, exactly. You're going to have the kid in your life forever. But even if you want to be an absentee dad, which, sounds awful.
It is, because then the child suffers for those years.
Well, yeah, the kid is the one who absolutely suffers the most. But, if the mama tricks you into a pregnancy, you're on the hook for child support for 18 years. And you're still thought of as this terrible guy because you didn't want to be in the kid's life. Yeah, it's a lose-lose. All mitigated by
Having self-control. Waiting.
and having the conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But if you're going to play the game where, we're so horny and we can't control ourselves, then you're going to have responsible sex. You're going to have to wrap that rascal. Ladies, you're going to have to use birth control. Otherwise, you're just not being ethical.
Right. And remember, even wrapping it doesn't keep you from catching some of those STDs.
Yeah, for sure. And also, let's be fair here. There are a lot of guys who will just bang a chick without a condom and blow their load in her. And she gets pregnant, she gets an STD or whatever, but at least they didn't exchange first names and he's gone.
Oh, that's awful. I did know one guy who didn't know his dad for that same reason.
Oh, yeah, this is a thing. This happens. So I got to tell you, so far it seems like there are different strokes for different folks, literally. And it really comes down to communication, and it comes down to ethics, and it comes down to what is your core belief system.
And I think the appreciation in savoring that moment. If you're too quick to rush it, you're missing the point of waiting. And it's kind of like letting the water boil and rise and get excited and really enjoy the moment. Because if you rush into it, then it doesn't have any value.
So let's find some middle ground here before we close this discussion. And I'm going to go ahead and go on record and say this is kind of how our relationship ran, you and me. When we first met each other, we had done a lot of dating. We recognized each other when we met each other, and we were smoking hot for each other almost immediately.
Yes.
We could very easily have just gone into a bathroom stall at the IHOP the morning we met and just gone at it.
Instant attraction.
Yes. But we didn't go for it instantly.
No.
Now, we didn't wait a whole long time, but for the record, it felt like ages.
It did. Well, you remember, I've mentioned it in other podcasts, but I sent you home in an ice storm for fear that, I couldn't resist the temptation.
Right. 4 or 5 days after you met me.
Seriously hot for you.
Felt like an eternity to our horny selves. Right. But I am grateful looking back that we had that opportunity to get to know each other and, well, savor that anticipation, even if it wasn't for as long as, say, 2 people waiting to get married before they have sex for 2 years of dating. Yeah, I am grateful for that. And I think we did it right. And we've had a pretty great sex life ever since.
Absolutely.
But, you did a great job at coming off sexually conservative, but extremely hot for the guy who is probably her one and only.
Right.
And that's how I felt like I pulled it off, too. Yeah. And I think there's something to that. And perhaps the message we would offer to those of you who are listening is the same message I would offer to guys who are talking to a woman, getting to know her even before they ask her out. Gentlemen, ladies, it doesn't take as long as you think to build some sort of connection and to do the right thing in terms of really vetting the people you're having sex with.
In other words, self-care.
It is self-care. It's self-control and it's self-care. It doesn't have to be months or years, especially if you see each other a lot. You can get to know each other and do this necessary vetting, which I know isn't a very sexy word, but it's a realistic one, in terms of getting to know someone before you just base it on sex. And you and I had wonderful conversations. We had great experiences, lots of romance. You brought that book along where you were asking me questions. So we felt like we had built a friendship and a relationship and that we genuinely liked each other. And this was built to last, importantly, before the sex happened.
Absolutely.
But it still happened relatively quickly compared to maybe what we've been conveying here in the show about, oh my goodness, you have to wait months or years to have a connection.
Well, we knew we had the the sexual, connection where we were just charged for each other.
Yeah, it was there.
But we wanted to make sure that emotionally and intellectually we were also connected and that we were of the same mindset.
And we didn't want to come off like sluts.
Oh, exactly.
I mean, there's something to be said for that, at least if that's where you're coming from. And you and I are coming from a faith-based background, each of us. So that was important to us. Yeah. Well, I think we've covered this concept today. And I hope and trust that it's been valuable listening for those of you who are listening. It's something that isn't talked about nearly enough, especially nowadays, because people just assume you're supposed to meet someone and hit it.
Or something's wrong with you if you don't.
Right. But there most certainly isn't something wrong with you if you wait. There may be everything right about what you and your potential partner are doing.
Yes. And you're protecting yourself both emotionally and physically.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, if you're listening to this episode on the Mountaintop Podcast feed, please go to mountaintoppodcast.com, download the free book, Sticking Points Solved, and of course, check into the latest masterclass, which is coming up this very Wednesday, if you're listening to this podcast within a few days of it being released. Perhaps ironically, Emily, it's called Being Better in Bed.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, this one's all about sexual prowess, which is a good thing. Go to mountaintoppodcast.com/masterclass and grab your ticket for this all-important event that a lot of guys could really use. And I know there was a time when I could really use it as well. And it all paid off when I met you.
Nice.
That's for sure.
I'm the receiver of the benefits.
Yeah, well, we've had lots of practice, too. There's years of experience at this point behind what we're going to talk about on Wednesday. So you can see what's involved there and grab your ticket at mountaintoppodcast.com/masterclass. And if you're a lady listening to this feed, please go to scottandemily.com/podcast, where you can download a free book on how to handle breakups. And that's from the perspective of you doing the breaking up, not you being broken up with. So it's not an ex-back book. It's how to get out of a relationship that you don't necessarily want to be in anymore. And that's there for you at scottandemily.com/podcast. And of course, remember, my name's spelled funny. It's just SCOT. Whether you're a guy, whether you're a gal, and you're going to mountaintoppodcast.com or scottandemily.com/podcast respectively, you can expect to find show notes and links for this episode and all the others we've ever done. So with that, we've come to the end of the episode. My name is Scott McKay.
And I'm Emily McKay.
Be good out there.
And have fun.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X&Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.